Welcome back. You got Will and Iman here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, Rovi, and MScribe. And today we're going to talk about the Millionaire Playbook for 2025.
The Millionaire Playbook, eh? 2025? Why that date specifically, dude?
Because it's programmed.
By who?
By
you?
Satoshi.
Okay. What happens that year, though? That's an ETA 14 months from now, roughly?
Yeah.
So that's like peak bull season is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
So as we know, bull season, I mean, if you've been watching this channel for the last couple of years, it hasn't been that. We've been deep in like a bear cycle for a while now.
Feels like
it's been
most of the channel is like during like bear. Like there's
it's because we tend to get busy like during a bull market, right? With like our projects and stuff.
Yeah.
Which everybody else does.
Right.
Right. So it's important, I guess, to kind of like, okay, the price of Bitcoin is on a bullish trajectory. The space, the sentiment, everything is shifting around it. You're starting to see notable influencers coming out. Yeah, not crypto influencers.
The text messages are coming in.
Yeah, just normal everyday influencers, household names starting to creep up. The words Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and NFTs even.
Like it's not a scam no more.
Or at least, I mean, Andrew Tate says it is, but stuff like that. But at least it's re-entering the zeitgeist, right? The conversation. Yeah. So,
what did Andrew Tate say?
That NFTs are stupid.
Recently?
Yeah, like yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah. But
he doesn't get it, that's why.
Well, he's Andrew Tate, dude. Just leave the guy alone. He's just being Andrew Tate. But the point is, like, the conversations are restarting, right?
Yeah.
So what happens every time a new bull season like emerges, dude?
Yeah, so let's talk about like the sectors where we think a lot of action is going to happen. Right. So we have the Metaverse, right? That's near and dear to us, right? Mm-hmm. We have DeFi, we have NFTs, and then we have fungible tokens. Okay. Is there more than that?
Oh yeah, there's a lot more,
Like what?
Like you mean like just all encompassing Web3 sectors or ordinal like Bitcoin ecosystem specific?
Yeah, I guess the sectors to look out for in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
I think that's basically it. Yeah. Like because the Bitcoin ecosystem, as we've been discovering over the last few months, it's so nascent and new and fresh. And it's like an infrastructure period. So that actually is probably like step one, actually. Understanding how critical infrastructure is, that is the first thing you want to look out for, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Things like what are going to be the scaling solutions for Bitcoin, right? Because if you go back, rewind 4 years ago,
it's true.
Those were some of the biggest opportunities in crypto, right? Like what's going to scale Ethereum?
Yeah.
Projects or ecosystems like Polygon and Matic.
Yeah.
And other scaling solutions of the time. Those were some of the best opportunities you can kind of be like looking at, right?
Okay.
So we kind of have that same opportunity. So infrastructure plays, obviously fungible tokens. We had BRC20s that was a wild success for a short period of time. But now we're like in this lull period where we don't really know which fungible token standard to kind of go to.
We got Tap Assets, we have Taproot, we have Pipe, we have Runes, Runestone, Stamps.
Mm-hmm.
So there's too many.
Yeah, there's a lot. But the point is... You want to keep your eye on all of them, right?
Yeah.
So let's go through like what exists right now, because our thesis is that, Bitcoin ecosystem is going to be probably one of the main drivers of the next bull market.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already been through several, bull cycles in the past, and typically you want to get in early on, again, like these things called primitives within an ecosystem, like DeFi and NFTs. Like we're gonna see a lot of the same things kind of manifest that happened on the other L1s, like Ethereum, Avalanche, Solana, whatever. Those same primitives will exist and emerge from Bitcoin.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, we saw this happen in Avalanche and Solana. The same things that were built on Ethereum happened over there, just copy and paste.
Yeah.
And those things exploded in those ecosystems.
Yeah, and then, during those times, Bitcoin was largely completely absent from all that, right?
Yeah.
There was no feasibility at the time. Nobody expected, an actual asset ecosystem to emerge from Bitcoin. Right. That wasn't like its purpose at the time.
Yeah, it was just a store of value.
Right, but the narrative has shifted dramatically since then, right?
Yeah.
Now I think like developers, the opportunities in Bitcoin, right? So just kind of understanding how history has kind of unfolded on all the other chains, that is where you can kind of position yourself, you know, to get in early on some of these like really critical, opportunities.
All right, so let's take a look at that. So we went to Magic Eden. We went to the ordinals page, and there's a section here called trending. And what do you know? first one trending is Bitmap, right? So this is we talked about Metaverse being one of those sectors that you need to pay attention to. Well, there's nothing more important for the Metaverse than Bitmap is. And so right now, the floor price is 0.0002, and there's almost 800,000 or over 800,000 of these.
Yeah.
So this is something to take a look at and, add that to the potential rocket ship that's going to happen here in the next 14 months.
Yeah. So you speak of so the opportunity of the Metaverse, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So if you rewind again 4 years ago where, we identified Metaverse was an emerging sector in Web3, and then we found Decentraland, right? Mana, right. There were tokens that existed that supported Metaverse ecosystems, and back in those times, they have very similar parallels of what we're seeing with Bitmap. A lot of potential, just not very much market appreciation or value to them, right?
Yeah. So this is about when we started the podcast. This is when we discovered Decentraland around 4 or 5 cents. And then it proceeded to crash during COVID to around 2 cents.
Yeah, we're talking like probably 10 to 15, 20 million market cap here for
20 million.
For Mana, 20 million.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it was largely outside of everybody's radar or scope, and nobody was paying attention to the Metaverse or Mana or Decentraland.
It was crazy because they had a product out, they had a virtual environment,
correct.
There was everything there.
Yeah, but it's just, again, the invisible hand just wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
Right. But that is the opportunity we're trying to say. Like there's that exists all across the landscape for Bitcoin, right? So considering Bitmap is like the first mover in this Metaverse on Bitcoin narrative, you're looking at a potential positioning opportunity when you were like early Mana, early Decentraland.
Yeah, I remember during these days, I was like, we were talking about, man, this next bull run, we'll be lucky to see $1 Mana.
Oh yeah, $1 Mana was like a dream.
Yeah,
a pipe dream.
Yeah.
And then
it went to $1.
It did.
And then it crashed from there to around 40 cents. And then Meta happened. Zuckerberg changed Facebook to Meta.
Yeah.
And it quickly went to $5.
Yeah, so you never really know exactly. It's hard to there's really no point in trying to predict exactly what's going to be the catalyst for any specific,
because you can't.
Yeah, you can't. You just really never know. But you got to have a fundamental, like, I guess, conviction in whatever it is you're identifying as like an opportunity or something that has potential future value in this space.
Yeah.
If you have like all the right, I guess, you've done enough due diligence and you see like, there is a good team behind these projects or like an ecosystem of developers supporting it, whatever it is.
Progress. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a sense of progress. There's community around these things, then those are necessary ingredients that usually lead to some sort of future lightning in a bottle moment. Right? Yeah. So we saw all those things with early NFTs too, right?
That's right. Yeah. And so that's another one. That's another sector. So going back, blue chip NFTs. Right, we can never predict which NFT would become a blue chip.
No,
and we're looking at Ordinal Maxi Biz OMB, and as you can tell, like this is one of the more valuable ordinals on Bitcoin, and you wouldn't know that this is like a clear blue chip, right? But that's the whole point. It's like you can't really know. And so you have to take a look at all the options that you have and just kind of look at the community, look at their Twitter account, does it get traction, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so if you go back again, let's rewind 4 years ago where NFTs again were mostly faded.
Yeah.
Nobody really saw or expected them to go up in such tremendous value and appreciation the way they did.
Yeah. And here we're looking at Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Yeah. So at these early days, you're looking at 0.3, 0.2 ETH or something, and an all-time high around 150 ETH.
150.
That's a 500x.
Yeah.
Like appreciation and market value for this single asset, this single IP, which is like one collection of art.
Yeah.
And in a pool of many different, art
options.
Collections. Yeah. So it's not just one one collection that did this well. Many did.
There's several blue chips.
Correct. Well, just the NFT market, period. So this whole digital artifact space that's emerging on ordinals right now, like the volume it's very minuscule, right? But these are the times and the opportunity where you kind of like want to position yourself again because Dude, it looks exactly how it did 4 years ago with NFTs.
Yeah,
I remember looking at the early NFT charts. They looked just like ordinals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. We were looking at the volume. I was like, dude, 50 grand a day and total volume for NFTs. Like, how is this ever gonna like take off?
Yeah, and that included Decentraland too.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
All NFTs are the Crypto Kitties, Decentraland Land, Axie Infinity, like everything that existed 4 years ago, like collectively was doing like 50K, 100K of daily volume. We were like, it was almost unfeasible to expect it to one day become a $60 billion, phenomenon.
Right. Yeah, and so if you go to CoinGecko, there's go to NFT and then go to Ordinals NFT. Top Ordinal NFT collections ranked by 24-hour trading volume. Good old Bitmaps at the top. And this is a good kind of like measure to see like which ones have like the traction.
Yeah, traction. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because this once you see 24-hour volume, like you see these assets consistently in the top 10, these are the ones to pay attention to.
Yeah, owner count's important because you obviously the more holders or owners of these assets, there's a bigger network effect / community marketing initiative behind these assets, right? So that means there's more people on Twitter shouting out about these assets and trying to kind of like evangelize the culture and the purpose and the value behind these different these different projects. And of course, just keeping an eye at social metrics is huge. If you're new to this space and you want to understand like how do I master crypto and Web3 and all this stuff, just live on Twitter, literally. Live on Twitter and Discord, really. And, attend these Twitter spaces, all these Twitter calls, see what that is like a real-time alpha drops from like, different founders, different community leaders, stuff like that. So it is a lot, I guess. Could be overwhelming at first because, hear people talk about really weird digital stuff.
Yeah.
And the culture is definitely very unique. But at the end of the day, it's really not that hard as far as like, learning how to participate in these markets.
Yeah, and also like these prices, like OMB is probably, one of the higher ones, so this is kind of expensive in general, but a lot of these other ones, they're approachable, right? Their floor prices are approachable. So what we're saying is in about 12 to 14 months, these floor prices are not going to be so much approachable anymore.
Correct. Yeah, and then you're going to see probably like thousands of other copycat or just I guess newer projects. They're going to kind of try and chase that momentum, right? Which is perfectly fine and viable and needed too, right? And there's opportunity there as well. And we'll be there during that time to cover that space whenever it comes. Yeah.
All right, so we talked about NFTs, ordinals. Now we're looking at sort of an
DeFi.
Angle on DeFi.
Yeah, so that's something else that blew up. Again, let's rewind 4 years ago, dude. What was going on 4 years ago? Where did all the value come from? It all started with DeFi.
Yeah, DeFi summer.
Like stable coins.
Yeah, what's DAI?
Yeah, stable coins like DAI, and then like lending protocols and yield generating instruments, farming and all this stuff.
Right.
All these concepts just popped out of like thin air.
They did.
But what enabled all of
that? Token.
Well, smart contracts, really, on Ethereum. So that's one of the things, again, we're talking about infrastructure that is remaining on Bitcoin that hasn't been figured out.
Right.
There are no smart contracts. So it's DeFi is probably going to be one of the more challenging things to enable.
Yeah, and that's why we're looking at Alex Labs and Stacks, where a lot of DeFi capability is going to probably occur on.
Yeah, I guess Muneeb, founder of Stacks, he had this grand vision a long time ago, right?
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah, he's like, you know what, dude? We should be able to execute all the same programmability on Bitcoin, just like you can anywhere else. So let's build a layer 2 environment where you can actually, create these smart contract executions that get packaged and, rolled up to Bitcoin at the end of the day. Yeah. So there is some upcoming releases for Stacks. I think one big one called SBTC, right? Is that what it's called? Oh, look at that. Here's a developer conference of new devs, getting their hands on that stuff.
Yeah, look at all these stallions, dude.
Well, explain to me what a stallion is, dude.
Well, if you've caught the show, what I told you to watch, Silicon Valley, they're over there looking for developers to add to their team. Yeah. And they look at like a bunch of people that look like nerds. Okay. And they call them stallions.
Fuck yeah, dude. Yeah. I'm looking for that too. I see a room full of, stallions,
Yeah.
and I get bullish, right? So
Yeah.
the stallions are lining up to figure out how do I build applications on stacks?
Right.
Because everybody wants to build DeFi because there's a lot of money obviously in finance, right?
Yeah.
And everybody wants to figure out how do we unlock this potential on Bitcoin because there's so much liquidity just kind of sitting around.
Yeah.
$500-600 billion sitting on Bitcoin. Let's financialize all that dormant value.
Yeah. And that ETF coming, that's going to double the price of the market cap.
Correct. Yeah. So stacks is important because that's obviously been their focus for many years. And they have like a leading advantage as far as like, something that's not just like on a white paper.
Yeah.
It's actually something deliverable, right?
They've been around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's take a look at the market cap. And so we're looking at stacks at almost $1 billion. And it's reached, hold on, let's look at the market cap. It's reached $3 billion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, so this is one to pay attention to. And not just stacks. And we're not saying just Alex Labs or just stacks. It's the ecosystems built using Alex Lab and stacks.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the primitives and protocols that will be built on top of stacks, right?
Yeah.
Those are the potential, 100x, 500x, 1000x's of the future, depending on if they get adoption or not, which they seem highly likely like they will, because again, it's the most these are some of the more viable pathways to create, again, like DeFi-esque protocols on top of Bitcoin, or at least that are connected to the Bitcoin network in some way, right? So it's a big deal. And then, so there's another potential viable solution to this. Yeah, we got Track with Pipe, so there's a lot of experimentation happening within like the Ordinals ecosystem itself, right? How do we introduce more robustness and functionality in the fungible token space to maybe do some DeFi stuff down the line?
Yeah, so Pipe came from Benny from Track, and Pipe is basically an upgraded Rune token. So Rune came from Casey Rodermore, and Casey Rodermore said Rune is not good enough. We're going to do Rune Stones, and everything before Rune or Rune Stones is like irrelevant. But Benny, he decided to leverage what Casey came up with and just make runes better with Pipe. And so this is just an example of another type of like experiment that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, and Track is interesting too because Track itself is a BRC20 token, but knowing that the limitations of that's where things like Tap and Pipe emerge, right? So the value of potentially securing like, the BRC20 token space, again, we don't know if that's going to be like the long-standing standard or consensus layer for fungible tokens on Bitcoin. Right now it is, but in the future it could not. So it's important to keep your eyes on all of these emerging fungible token standards because, there's opportunity. It's, just like the NFT space, which one's going to become, like the Bored Ape Yacht Club?
That's right.
Do the 500x, 1000x? That is like the call to action, right? To figure that out.
Yeah, and speaking of potential, we had a conversation with A from Atomicals Protocol about a week ago, so definitely check that out. And Atomicals is another standard that allows you to come up with fungible and non-fungible tokens.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what we're talking about, right? Competing, I guess, like models, because this one's more like miner focused.
Right. Yeah, you need a GPU to mine some of these tokens.
Correct. Or I guess that's one of like the, features of the Atomicals protocol itself. But there's so many, there's a lot of differences between each of them, distinguishing factors, but obviously things like network effect are critical. And
yeah, they have their own domain name system called RNS, Realm Name System.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is going to be tough to pinpoint exactly which one of these is going to be like the golden goose unicorns. But overall, at the end of all of this, like, most likely, these things kind of tend to rise as an ocean, right?
Yeah.
From what we've seen in the past. Like, if we're right, our thesis is correct, the Bitcoin ecosystem does become like the main driver for the bull market. It almost feels like potentially you might not be able to miss. Maybe.
So are you saying that Ethereum will also rise during this bull cycle?
Well, everything is going to rise, but I'm speaking specifically within the Bitcoin space, right? Because there's a lot of like there's a lot of
untapped potential.
Well, there's just a lot. Like, there's a lot of fragmentation. I guess for now, I guess there's a possibility it all just consolidates down the line, and then your decision making becomes a lot more easier, right? Like, if there's only one solution as opposed to like 10, like there are today, you don't have to try and pick which one's going to be the winner.
Good point.
Good point. I mean, that happened on Ethereum, right? It all just kind of consolidated a Polygon.
Yeah, and this is the challenge. Is like back in the Ethereum days when all these like blue chip projects were taking off. You didn't know, you couldn't predict which one would take off. And it's the same situation now. It's like we can't know which fungible token standard on Bitcoin is going to take off. But you got to be paying attention as to what is happening, because otherwise you'll miss it. Right? And so we're taking a look at the last thing here. Lightning Labs rolls out Taproot assets to make Bitcoin multi-asset network. Again,
this is another contender for a fungible token ecosystem. So really the things to look out for is developer adoption. And who's going to be building on top of this.
Liquidity.
Liquidity. Which of these actually do enable things like DeFi, because that is going to be very important into the future, because we need these stable coins.
We need food tokens on Bitcoin.
We need things to attract more Degens, to be honest. Right? Because the Degens kind of get like this whole ecosystem started, right?
So we have Lightning Network,
Taproot assets.
Dude, internet computer. A lot of people hit us up for internet computer videos, so we need to do a dedicated video on ICP.
Yeah, we will, and we're gonna try and reach out to Bob Bodily. Bodilly. We're gonna reach out to Bob, because Bob has a lot of wisdom and experience with ICP, and he's actually leveraging it as a sidechain to Bitcoin in his own personal project. So somebody has like insight with that much insight into Bitcoin, its internal mechanisms, and how it all works and operates. He's decided ICP is like the most viable solution as of today, to actually execute on like a side environment that you can do the things that you would want to do, like that smart contracts enable, that still have that finality on Bitcoin. And
we saw that ICP has like a native integration to Bitcoin, where you can leverage like smart contract functionality with native Bitcoin. It's pretty interesting.
I mean, that's everything Stacks is as well. So it is interesting. So we need to look into ICP. So just like we said with Stacks, this doesn't say like go ape in and buy, all in ICP token. It's keep an eye on that ecosystem and developers who are building and, tying that to Bitcoin and, extracting liquidity from Bitcoin into that ecosystem, building apps around that, and then, building new value and then sending it back to Bitcoin as a result.
And it goes without saying that none of this is investment advice. This is just purely for entertainment, where we predict a lot of the action is going to be. And I guess this is an inside look as like how we look at things.
Because I mean, dude, we say it all the time. Crypto, and there's a reason why we've been like addicted to this stuff for what, like 7-8 years now.
It's entertaining.
It's very entertaining, but we've seen people literally like their lives change.
That's right.
Like tremendously. Remember, like just people we just knew become millionaires.
That's right.
Like almost overnight.
Because
if they just happened to speculate on some NBA cards, right? It's like, I like these NBA things, the NBA Top Shots.
That's
and
right.
then overnight, these people become millionaires. Just because, hey, these little cats are cool. Or I like to battle these little fucking puffball creatures. Like, this game's kind of fun. And then a month later, they become millionaires. Right?
Shout out to Anorak.
You just like know exactly what I'm talking about. So these things happen. Or it's like, I invested in digital land. Metaverse becomes the hottest thing.
Shout out to
Maddie. Unfortunately, we can't point to ourselves for any of these moments. But we've seen a lot of these things happen to a lot of other people. That's the point. And we want it to happen to you.
That's right.
Next.
And that's why you're watching this video, right?
Yep.
All right, guys. Let us know if we missed anything. There's a lot of stuff happening on Bitcoin. A lot of stuff probably happening outside of Bitcoin. Sorry, TJ.
Yeah. But at the end of the day,
all boats would rise.
It's all about Bitcoin, in my opinion. Dude, I can't believe I've become this much of a maxi.
I told you. It was only a matter of time, dude.
This is wild.
All right, guys. Appreciate you for watching. And again, let us know in the comment section below if we missed anything. And follow all our Twitter channels. There's a lot of them. And we will catch you in the next video.
Peace.